Yes, hello, you beautiful goblins. That's your favorite blogger speech. Today we talk about a certain philosopher named Wittgenstein and his Tractatus Logico-Philosophicus. We will go through it point by point, but strictly along the edges, nothing too deep. People usually start with the fact that this guy had an absolute carnival circus tier biography. He was insanely rich. Then gave away his entire inheritance, rode around on the unicycle in the front of Russell, juggled empty bottles, and built himself a house from scratch. That, the Tractatus, the LPT, he literally rode in the trenches during the war. Like a bottom mage, he probably sat there with a flintlock, scrambling out spell. Wittgenstein is extremely hyped philosopher. Basically everyone heard of him. But why? Well, he generated a lot of memes. He famously threatened some poor guy with the fireplace poker. He got that haunted, thump-like face, always bug-eyed, struggling of the 2000 year. On top of that, the Tractatus is only about 20 pages, maybe 40, and there is no hard words in it. Anyone can read it if they want. Wittgenstein often gets treated as the mad guy. This engineer type who got sick and tired of philosopher waffling about nothing with the serious face. So he walked out their turf and showed the little punk how it's done. A self-taught philosopher who never read Aristotle. Fun fact, Quine never read Aristotle either, and every student dream of becoming the next Wittgenstein. Read nothing, dunk on everyone, because you are already a genius. At the first, I opened a big fat book on the early analytical philosophy and tried to lay it all out point by point. Here, Wittgenstein agrees with Russell. Here he does not. Here he doesn't. They have different conception of atomic proposition. Here he follows Kant. Then he talks about the priori logic. But then I realized it would be unbelievably dry, and I am, after all, a some entertainment author. There is a vibe of the egging Carnival Barker who's still stuck in a 20, and honestly, Wittgenstein himself probably didn't intend such a suffocating approach. Alright, the Tractatus consists of numbered points, individual theses, so you might get the impression there he literally proves a theorem or drives a new logic from premises. Now, the Tractatus is literally a collection of aphorisms. It's a greatest hit album of cool quotes about logic. So I am just going to comment on it and clarify how I personally understand Wittgenstein's key thesis. As for Frege, his predecessor, I will record a short video about him next time. Subscribe, there is also my private channel. If you find me interesting, please toss a coin. It's not a big deal for you, I think. First thesis, point 1. The world is all that is the case, but most often people say the world is everything that it is in the case. This formula, the world is everything that happened, is the key formula of positivism. Doctrine belong of the genre of logical positivism. What's the point? Let's not talk about being, metaphysics, and the human mind, all that esoteric junk. Just what happened, that what we talk about. And positivism can actually get pretty erotic too. That happened could be the will or the clash of class interest or some sexual drive. In that broad sense, Nietzsche, Marx, and Freud are also positivists. None of them put a cognizant human mind on the center of the system. That so-called subject-object dichotomy gets dissolved by Nietzsche, by Marx, and by Wittgenstein alike. But Wittgenstein, unlike those guys, is of course a much structured, analytic philosopher. He speaks gray, dry, and direct. So, point 1.101. The world is the totality of facts, not of things. Look out of your room. There is a computer sitting on a desk. You want to say the room is made of objects. Objects like desk, object, computer, and one object sits of the other. But objects don't exist on their own. They don't exist outside their relation with other object or quality. The computer sits on the desk, that's the fact. The computer is black. is the fact. The desk is wooden. The room around them takes up such and such a volume, a fact. And the fabric of your room, there is a fabric of entire world. If entire world is woven from this fact, not from object. There are complex, composite facts. You can break them down to atomic one, up to the point. The fact is a logical space are the world. Right. Facts aren't just some arbitrary world solid. They exist in a logic space. They're constrained. Their configuration is limited. You cannot fit a six-dimensional figure into 3D space. You can draw a projection, sure, but you cannot cram a full six-dimensional shape into the three-dimensional. The internal logic of the 3D space wouldn't allow it. A computer inside a fact cannot be totally colorless. It must have some color. It cannot be four-dimensional in the three-dimensional room. There cannot be a fact where a computer is fully black and fully white at the same time. The computer isn't allowed to be both on the top and the under of the desk. It's impossible. Logically impossible. A fact only has meaning inside logical space. And when I say space, I don't mean Cartesian coordinate. Logical space is just what a fact can possibly be. Next, 1.21. Each item can be the case or not the case, while everything else remains the same. So the computer can be on the desk or not. Its configuration, the position of the fact in logical space, determines the world. If it's on the desk, the fact obtained in logical space. If not, it doesn't. We can talk about true and false here. The statement the computer is on the desk can be true or false depend on whatever the fact holds a place in the logical space. So, the world turns out to be simply all the facts that obtain. The ones that don't obtain aren't the world, but the world is definitely by them too. They boarded. The facts that obtain are basically the events, the cases, the thing, what happened. A fact can be either true or false, but it must be one of two. It cannot occupy some position halfway between true and falsehood. Point number 2. What is the case? A fact is the existence of states of affairs. And then 2.01. A state of affairs is the combination of objects. Think the computer sits on the desk. A fact reflecting correlation between objects. The computer is black. Also a fact. The computer is rectangular. Fact. In the space of color, the computer occupies the position black. In the space of shape, it occupies rectangular. In the space of position, it occupies on the desk. But by itself, the computer is colorless, shapeless, located nowhere, which is why the computer alone doesn't exist. It's a pure form, a faceless substance of the world. We cannot imagine spatial object outside of space or temporal object outside of time. Why not? What stops us from imagining a spiritual object outside space? It comes down to the priori law of logic by which the world functions and is built. This is crucial for obtaining. Logic isn't Aristotle's four law. Sure, he got logical addition, logical multiplication, and so on. But logic itself isn't just a code of rules people invented to make correct statements. No, for Wittgenstein, logic is ontological. Logic is the structure of the world, what the world can possibly be. If the world is made of fact, then logic is the set of the rules by which the world is built. But at the same time, logic is the structure of language we speak because of the law of syntax, by which we assemble a sentence out of words. To say something meaningful, we have to say it inside our inside a well-formed sentence, because a meaningful sentence expresses something, and what it expresses is a fact in the logical space. That's why logical matters so much. That's why it's called a Tractatus Logico-Philosophicus. But don't worry, there wouldn't be conjunction and dense logical formulas on every page. So, 2.1 is we picture facts to ourselves. Picture present a situation in logical space. A picture is a fact. The totality of the true thought is the picture of the world. A proposition determines a place in the logical space. A thought is a proposition with the sense. The totality of propositions is language. A proposition is a picture of reality. I was already skipped a huge chunk of the Tractatus, and now we just compress several chapters into a single slide. Why? First, I generally don't have the elite credential to break down every single one of the Wittgenstein takes. Second, I just want to sketch the big picture. Why does he do that? Why introducing the concept of thoughts, proposition, and pictures? Aside those, he introduced even smaller notation, name, sign, symbol, and then say all these concepts share one logical form. That you can find a logical form everywhere. Here's the thing. The early analytical philosophers were all roughly realists. They assumed there is an existential world, there is thinking, a subject that grabs at the world, and there is language, is which thinking is reflected. They were philosophers of language, but they still assumed some thinking behind the language, and they had this project. Let's build an ideal, correct language, bolt on the bunch of the extra scaffolding so that it expresses everything clearly and make it impossible to talk any metaphysics at all. Wittgenstein acted differently. He wanted to remove thinking from the system entirely. He thinks thinking is just a puff of nothing, a non-existing set of words. Then we talk about something material, where we are simply mistaken. Wants to say there is no physical layer between language and the world, no thoughts or judgment separate from language, or all. Through all thoughts, everything mental, everything physical, is all language on the way or another. It's all subject to the logical form of the statement. And so everything philosophical, everything philosopher called thinking collapsed into language. Then it turned out the logical form of language is the logical form of the world made of fact, and the limits of the world is literally the limits of the language. If we, like engineers, study the law by which real language function, the language we can actually speak, not some artificial syntax one we invented, we are directly studying the laws by which the world functions. Wittgenstein had an engineering background. He treats language like an engineer. He's just a machine that works, and he wants to know how it works. He doesn't want to build a new machine to express something ideal. For on word, the thoughts is the proposition with the thoughts is a proposition with a sense. A proposition is a true function of elementary propositions. Most propositions and questions about philosophical objects are not false but nonsensical. Why cannot we answer such question and can only point out their nonsense? Here start the takes about the sense of the state, the sense of the proposition. What is nonsense? He said philosophical questions are nonsensical. But what is nonsense? First, we need to understand what sense is. The sense of a proposition lies in its verifiability. It's rained yesterday. It's a meaningful sentence. Why? Because we can check it, verify it, find out whatever. It's actually rained yesterday. Then the statement is either true or false. It's either corresponds to a fact in the logical space or it doesn't. Either way is meaningful because it can be true or false. A proposition that recalls a fact in the real world is called practical proposition, and this is basically the whole obsession of analytic philosophy. Wittgenstein and of natural science. The natural science states truth about the world. They recall practical propositions, and you, dear subscribers, have got protocol phases. Beside protocol proposition, there is our analytical proposition, for example, 2 plus 2 equals 4. The philosophical proposition belong here too. The world is everything that happened. Such propositions are called tautology. They are self-evident. The world is everything that happened. Okay, flip it. Everything is the world. Just like 2 plus 2 equals 4 and 4 equals 2 plus 2, there is nothing to check. These propositions are self-true in themselves. Philosophy and mathematics produce them, and they act as scaffolding, as props. We lean on them to reveal the structure of language and the world, and then we throw them away. Because why keep them around? They don't really tell us anything. Wittgenstein mostly writes analytic proposition in this thread, and he doesn't hide it. He says, you will climb up the thesis of the treatise like a ladder and throw them away because it's work already done, and we don't need to constantly keep this our head that 2 plus 2 equals 4 and treatise and treat it like some hot take we can reuse somewhere. And then the third, nonsensical proposition, they're not verifiable and they're not analytical. From logic point of view, they're just piles of words. But propositions like this, the nonsensical ones, belong to shapes like ethic, religion, mystics, metaphysics. That doesn't mean they're bad or wrong. These propositions are simply outside the world, outside logical form. Wittgenstein himself was deeply religion man. He just say things like the existence of God are things one cannot speak about. He denies any possibility of theology, but that doesn't mean Christianity is false. The world is simply very small. God doesn't fit inside it, but outside the world, he can perfectly well exist, because the meaning of the world too lies outside the world. Next, 4.112, the aim of philosophy is the logical certification of thought. Philosophy is not a doctrine but an activity. This philosophical work consists essentially of elucidation. Philosophy doesn't reduce to philosophical propositions. It serves to clarify propositions. Without philosophy, our thoughts are cloudy and indistinct. Its task is to clarify thoughts and give them sharp boundaries. There is a general form of the proposition. Here it turned almost into a mathematical expression of linguistic proposition. Rousseau had a project, logicism, and so did Frege, that mathematics is basically a sub-genre of logic that you could derive the piano for logic. But then Gödel came along and all these guys got absolutely freaked, and I have extremely zero competence to casually explain the formulas on the screen right now. If you done some basic calculus and understanding what this function is and tell us, you can read that section yourself and tell us in the comments what it's actually about. And then point 7 of one cannot speak, thereof one must be silent. That's Wittgenstein's famous lines, his signature move, that one cannot speak about clearly, one must pass out in the silence. But this silence is discreet, of course. The religion silence, ethical silence, silence impressed by Augustine's Confessions. Wittgenstein was a huge Augustine fan, and he said the most important part of his treatise is actually the second, the part where he stays silent. The empty space beneath point 7 is, in fact, the most important thing is in the book. This is why Russell called Wittgenstein a mystic. And here is the fun part. Wittgenstein walks up to this threshold, reaches point 7 and stops. Beyond it, emptiness. Heidegger meanwhile works the unsable form of the other side, doing his linguistic sorcery, crawling up from beyond and busts his forehead against the very simple point 7, and there at the wall he and Wittgenstein shakes hands. I will unpack this idea is a bit more deep on the page channel what I think Wittgenstein is. Anyway, subscribe, hit like. I love you all. I will be pitching out videos more often. The next one will probably be about philosophical foundation of medieval astrology. Bye!